Stephen also served in the administration of President Bill Clinton as Deputy General Counsel at the US Department of Transportation from 1994 to 99. Welcome to the AmCham Premier Series, Stephen. I invite you to share your thoughts and insights on what Asian businesses can expect under a Biden administration and how we can best prepare for these trade and policy changes, and what might those, in your view, those trade and policy changes look like?
Okay, so what is it that businesses should be thinking out as U.S. foreign policy will shift under Biden, as I've described a bit. So this is an op-ed I wrote for the Straits Times about a month ago or so. And I think there's really key thematics for the incoming administration that businesses need to be thinking about. The Biden administration, look, we don't know what is going to happen. There are too many unknown variables for how a Biden foreign policy is going to play out. What is going to happen with COVID and the vaccines, and how quickly can the US come out of its health crisis and economic crisis? Who's going to win the Georgia Senate seats? And is that going to give the president-elect more or less flexibility when it comes to his foreign policy team getting confirmed? What is President Xi going to do in reaction to all of this? Until you know all of those things and so many other variables, you can't know for sure. No crystal ball to say this is what the Biden team is going to do. But we can understand where the Biden approach is thematically. And I think that is the way for a business to think about what should it be doing as it sees geopolitics impacting their business. And the three thematics are that the Biden administration is going to engage multilaterally, they are going to incorporate sustainability, and they are going to shift into a pro-democratic direction. So thematic one, multilateralism. So what is it that is going to change from the Trump administration? Well, this is a shift back. This will revert back to a more traditional American foreign policy where you work with allies, you work with like-minded countries to advance the US interest. When the US works with like-minded countries, it advances its interest. When it works unilaterally, as it did under Donald Trump and his definition of America first, it doesn't work. And that's, exactly what Joe Biden said, what he meant when he said that Donald Trump was tough on China, but Joe Biden will be tough but effective. How will he be effective? He'll be effective because he's going to work with the EU. He's going to work with Japan. He's going to work with Korea. He's going to work with other nations when it comes to addressing China's unfair trade practices. And so that is going to be a thematic. And so that's going to change a lot of how countries in our part of the world, in this part of the, this part of the globe, are going to be dealing with the United States and dealing with China. And there's going to be some trade-offs they're going to have to make. Now, he's said that he's not immediately going to reduce the tariffs on China, but he's going to take a review of it, and he's going to try and develop this coherent strategy. So we can talk more about what this means in terms of supply chains and the redistribution of supply chains and companies needing to become more resilient with their supply chains. But this is going to play into that. It is also going to be a multilateral approach when it comes to the US joining back to the Paris Climate Agreement. This does not require congressional approval. So regardless of the Senate being under control of the Republicans or the Democrats, the US will re-enter Paris. That one is an exception to the rule. We can make that prediction, and that's going to have an impact for companies, as well as working multilaterally, such as with the World Health Organization. So this multilateral approach is something to keep in mind. The second is there's going to be a focus on sustainability. Now, sustainability I take from a ESG perspective, from an environmental social governance perspective. So it is how countries, how businesses conduct themselves, and how a business has its impact on the environment as it operates as a business, how it impacts society through worker health and safety, or through responsible sourcing, through promoting diversity and inclusion, and then on governance when it comes to corruption. All of those things, that ESG mindset, that is going to to be part of how the Biden team thinks about foreign policy. It's going to be a sustainable foreign policy, and you know, front and center is going to be on climate change. And you saw that with President Biden appointing, former Secretary of State John Kerry as a cabinet level special envoy on climate. And it's not only that the U.S. is going to have to reduce its own emissions, but it is going to undertake energetic diplomacy to pressure other countries to make their own ambitious pledges. Every country is going to be expected, to do this, or at least the Biden administration is going to try. So if you're investing in palm oil, if you're investing in coal, this could have an impact on your business. There are opportunities certainly when it comes to renewables with this focus on sustainability and the environment. There's also going to be a focus on sustainability when it comes to human rights. During a fundraising event, then candidate Biden said he is going to take on Xi on his violation of human rights. He's going to challenge him when he does that. This has been something the Trump administration has been doing, and the Congress has certainly been doing this. It's been looking very closely at forced labor. There are potential sanctions coming on forced labor when it comes to Xinjiang and cotton in particular coming out of China, and that could have a huge impact in terms of raising prices. And if you're sourcing cotton from China, this could be for textiles, this could be a major issue for you wherever you are. And even if you're not sourcing it, could make cotton a lot more expensive as you manufacture in textiles. It's also going to be on not just in China. The U.S. has sanctioned a Malaysian company over forced labor, and that these types of focus on human rights is, can only be expected to continue as the Biden team has a values-based foreign policy. So something to keep in mind. And the third is we're going to see more of a pro-democracy shift. This has been underway already. There is something that the Trump administration did called the Indo-Pacific Transparency Initiative. And it has a lot of anti-corruption efforts where the goal is to promote civil society, rule of law. There are funding of journalists and advocacy groups to expose corruption, drive reform. So if you are doing business in a country that has transparency issues, that has corruption issues, this is going to be something different. The FCPA may not apply to you if you're not a US company not doing business with the United States, but I think it's going to be more of a focus on an anti-corruption effort. In 2019, I saw that the USAID supported Sri Lanka's launch of an e-government procurement platform. Obviously, when you get things online, you make it more transparent, you move away from paper-based, you take out a lot of opportunities for rent seeking or other such activities. So expect to see this go on, and this is going to be highlighted by the new administration Summit for Democracy. And it's going to be looking to secure commitments to combat authoritarianism. Something that businesses are going to have to be aware of as they take into account who they're doing business with, what sectors are they in, what changes are going to be coming. Are you going to see more sanctions on cotton, on cocoa, on cashews, on all other sorts of commodities?
Stephen, I'd like you to wear your PE hat for just as you wrap up. What are your views on the opportunities or shifts or even pitfalls in 2021 and in this post-COVID world? From a PE hat on. Yeah.
Okay, no, sure. So I think going back, I'm going to use the word sustainability again, but that is where you see a lot of investment that wants to see more sustainable growth. And so you have these funds that are now being referred to as impact funds or sustainable funds, where the private equity firms have an approach where they have that ESG mindset. And the question is, how do you de-risk the business and how do you create value by thinking sustainably that is going to give you a better return? And there are certain sectors that are easier to justify that to. So I think if you look in healthcare, if you look in education, if you look in agriculture, and certainly in terms of sustainable agriculture, all of those sectors that are really showing that you can have a market-based return and have a positive societal impact. That is where you're seeing billions, if not billions and billions of dollars flowing into private equity funds, and I should say all private capital funds. So it's infrastructure, it's credit, it's renewables, it's traditional private equity, it's venture capital. That is a very hot right now. Now it takes a mindset shift from the private capital investors. It also means you're going to have some more demands on who you're investing in. So, for example, if you're going to invest in solar in Sri Lanka and in anywhere, you just can't say, well, I'm going to invest in solar, therefore it's a sustainable investment and I'm done. You have to ask yourself, well, where do those solar panels get manufactured, and are they being manufactured in the most environmentally sustainable way? What happens when the solar panel's life, the solar panel no longer is going to be used? How do you dispose of the solar panel? Where do you put, right, the solar farm? Are you going to displace villagers? Because that is not very sustainable. Or are you going to disrupt agriculture? Are you going to disrupt bird migration if you have solar panels there, or if you have a wind farm? What is that going to do? So it's you just can't say, well, I'm going to be an investor in renewables, therefore I'm a sustainable investor, or I'm an impact investor. But it's those funds that are getting that have that ESG mindset can really get that billions and billions of dollars that's out there, especially from US investors, European investors, Australian investors, who are looking for those things, and they're looking to do those types of things in emerging markets. And so emerging markets it's easier to show impact for a lot less money. You can have a lot greater impact in an emerging market. Most of Southeast Asia, certainly Sri Lanka would constitute an emerging market from a private equity perspective or a private capital perspective. So lots of opportunities if you can show that right mindset and you can manage and measure to a sustainable outcome. I think that's kind of that's kind of the space I'm focused on in private equity right now. It's a very exciting space to be in. Very challenging, but a lot of opportunity.
Wow, thank you, Stephen. Good insight. And nice to have someone who wears a policy and a PE hat at the same time. So you get both views. So interesting insights. Stephen, we are 1 minute to our hour, and we blocked your time in. So thank you from AmCham Sri Lanka, Stephen, for taking the time. Me and our participants and from the chamber, we appreciate what you shared, the insights given. And since you've been to Sri Lanka 12 years ago, we look forward to seeing you in Colombo or in Sri Lanka very soon.